এটা কি যাবে লাইট যাবে হ্যাঁ বলে দিন তাহলে আমি আনতে বলি
এই সামনে থেকে সরে যাও না সরে যাও তুমি আরে টিভি চলে যাও আপনি সরে যাও এটা দিচ্ছি না লাগবে
My name is Indira Jaising. I'm the Additional Solicitor General of India, and I'm here to see before you to explain my reasons why I wrote a letter to the Prime Minister of India asking him to initiate a process for the removal of Justice Ganguly from the position of Chair of the Human Rights Commission of West Bengal. Now, the first thing is, as you all know, 3 judges of the Supreme Court of India have looked into this issue, and they have come to the prima facie conclusion that there were acts of verbal and non-verbal unwelcome sexual conduct on the part of Justice Ganguly. This happened on the 24th of December 2012 at the hotel It happened on the 23rd of December at the hotel The Meridian in Delhi. It is rather tragic that it happened during the period when a lot of agitation was happening on the streets of Delhi against the Maitree rape. Now, there are a few things. I was personally hoping that Justice Ganguly would resign as soon as this report was made public by the Supreme Court of India. You must understand, this was an extremely unprecedented step for the Supreme Court to take. That a committee of 3 judges, 2 of them are incumbent Chief Justices, Justice Loda, Justice Ganguly, and Justice Rajana Desai, one of the women judges of the Supreme Court. I think the court has done this because they were very concerned about the credibility of the court as an institution, the Supreme Court as an institution. Now, as soon as the report was put up on the website of the Supreme Court of India, I would have expected Justice Ganguly to resign. But he has gone on record to say that he will not resign and that we can do what we want to do, but we will not resign. Now, it is in these circumstances that I did decide to write a letter to the Prime Minister of India, and all that I have said in my letter is that due process of law must be set in motion. There is a procedure prescribed in law for the removal of judges of the human rights bodies all over the country, and my only demand is that this procedure should be set in motion. Now, the procedure is that the central government has to request the President of India to make a reference to the Supreme Court itself. And this reference is made with articles of charge. Now, of course, the charge in this case would have to be that he has indulged in conduct of a verbal and non-verbal nature of a sexual nature. And that the details of this conduct will be mentioned. After that, it is up to the Supreme Court of India to conduct an inquiry, giving him a full opportunity to be heard. And then they will come to the conclusion whether an act of misconduct has been committed or not. Please understand, this is very different from a criminal procedure. This is a procedure for removal of a person. It's all there in the Protection of Human Rights Act of 1993. Now, there have been some questions raised by various people, especially those who support him, that after all, there is no proof of the fact that he indulged in this kind of behavior. I do want to read out a few sentences for you from the report of the committee. As far as the intern is concerned, she provided the committee with all details of call records. So her phone number, the phone number of Justice Ganguly, the phone number of the people who he called before and after the incident, all those phone numbers have been provided to the committee of 3 judges. She also provided to the committee of 3 judges SMSs which went back and forth between him and her before and after the incident. Now what the committee has done is, I'll read it out, the committee directed the concerned service providers to freeze all records and SMS records of the mobile numbers of all these persons for the period 20th December 2012 to 25th December 2012. Remember, this was the period in which the phone calls were going back and forth. So there is documentation in the form of call records and in the form of SMSs. Now the committee is also recording. She was called before the committee and she was asked questions. The hearing went on for about 2 to 3 hours, and her entire statement before the committee has been video recorded. Secondly, Justice Ganguly was also called before the committee. He did come before the committee. He did give a statement, and in his statement he didn't deny that indeed he did call her to the Hotel Maitree. His statement has also been video recorded by the committee. And he made a legal submission. In his legal submission he said, even if these allegations are accepted, which I deny very strongly, the incident allegedly took place in December of 2012. Insofar as the Vishaka guidelines are concerned, they are applicable to the workplace. So in other words, he says this happened at the Meridian, not in the Supreme Court of India. Insofar, the Honorable Court is also not the workplace either of the intern or the judge concerned who retired. Vishaka guidelines do not make sexual harassment an offence. And then he goes on to say that the act itself came into force much later. That is as far as he is concerned. Now the committee says this legal submission we don't have to go into, but we are here just to look at the facts of the case. His legal submissions will be looked into by a court of law. Now then they go on to say, we have carefully scrutinized the statement written as well as oral of the intern, the affidavits of her 3 witnesses and the statement of Justice Ganguly himself, and it appears to the committee that in the evening on 24/12/2012, the intern did visit the Hotel The Meridian where Justice Ganguly was staying to assist him with his work. This fact is not denied by Justice Ganguly in his statement. And then we go on to say, considering all the evidence on record, including the statement of the intern, both written and oral, prima facie disclosed that an act of unwelcome behavior, unwelcome verbal and non-verbal conduct of a sexual nature by the retired judge did occur in the hotel room in Le Meridian on the 24th of December 2012, approximately between 8 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. Now, as far as my letter is concerned, I'll just read out one sentence to you, a couple of sentences and leave it at that. I say, as the Additional Solicitor General of India, it is my duty to defend the constitutional values, one of the most fundamental of them being the right to non-discrimination based on sex. We as a nation have made commitments to international bodies to protect the rights of women, and we have signed treaties such as CEDAW to advance the rights of women. It is now time for us to redeem these promises. You would agree, I'm telling the Prime Minister, that when it comes to allegations of sexual harassment, such a person cannot occupy the position of a chair of a human rights body until his name is honorably cleared. And so basically, I'm only asking for due process of of law to be set in motion so that the truth may be known. I then go on to say that as far as I can see, the higher the position that a person occupies, the higher the standard of conduct to which that person will be held. And in all fairness, having regard to the need to maintain institutional integrity of human rights bodies, he would be expected to resign on his own. But of course, since after the three-judge committee, and since he has chosen not to resign, it was necessary for me to approach the Prime Minister of India to set due process in motion. And I conclude my letter by saying this will send the much required signal to the country as a whole that the rights of women do matter, that they will be respected, that it will also send a signal that no matter how high you are, the law is above you. And most of all, most importantly in my opinion, those who swear an oath of allegiance to the Constitution of India, those who implement the law and punish the rest of us for our crimes, they must live by the law and they must be punished by the same laws. This is my point of view, which is why I wrote this letter. Thank you. And mentioned it because the morning newspaper carried a report that an intern had alleged that she was sexually harassed by a former judge of the court. Now, that is when the judges set up a three-judge committee. Now, all of us have been saying that under the Vishaka guidelines there should be an internal administrative procedure for looking into this complaint. And therefore, what the Supreme Court has done is an internal administrative procedure to look into the complaints. And I would say that it was rightly done because there was no other forum which could have done this. And so they went into this question. And to say that it's overreach, I think it does injustice to the institution as a whole. Because he thinks that her part of the story will never be made available to the public. So her silence is what is making him bolder, I think. This is my personal opinion. Would you like to? Yeah.
It's a kind of a defensive, aggressive strategy and mechanism on part of the former justice. Yeah, go the other side. Can't you hear me if I... I'm Shoma Mari. I'm representing Maitree, a women's network of individuals and organizations based in West Bengal. What I would like to respond to your comments is that it's a kind of a aggressive defensive strategy on part of an offender, particularly in the context of a long silence on the person who is being violated. And he thinks that he is above law, and there will be a kind of, because of his position, there will be a kind of a double standards of investigation, which we, on part of our organization and network, very much oppose. Unchita, on our behalf, will read out our statement. We have a statement here from Maitree. Maitree, a women's rights network of organizations and activists, urges the Government of India to conduct an inquiry into the complaint of sexual harassment brought against Justice Asok Ganguly and take appropriate action on the basis of the findings of the inquiry. We also request Justice Ganguly to step down from the position of Chairperson of the West Bengal Human Rights Commission while the inquiry is being undertaken. This will create enabling conditions for a fair inquiry. We expect that the Government of India will ensure that the intern who has complained about sexual harassment will get the support she needs during the process of inquiry. Thank you.
Can I just ask a question out of interest, Ms. Jaising? We have grown up hearing that you are innocent until proven.
Not to damage the institution of the West Bengal Commission for Human Rights, that he should step down. The question here is the individual larger than the institution, or is the institution larger than the individual? And if the institution is larger than the individual, he can step down and demand due process, which is why I've said until his name is honorably cleared.
Why the girl taking so much time to raise this complaint?
Sorry?
Why the girl taking so much time to raise this issue?
Yeah, maybe one of you would. You know, I mean, I'm sure you know about this, that talking about the most intimate moments of one's own life and talking about an issue like sexual harassment or rape for that matter is not an easy thing for a woman to just come out with it in the public domain. And so it's not fair to expect that with it. And by the way, I must tell you this, there is information in the committee report to say that immediately after the incident, she did inform some of the professors at NUJS where she's working. She also informed a lot of her friends, and some of her friends actually phoned back to Justice Ganguly and actually told him, you have no business to do this to a 23-year-old girl. Incidentally, you know, he's been going around telling people she's like my daughter. Yeah. So it is not that she did not come out with it. Immediately after the incident, she did, and she has informed some of her professors, most certainly her friends, and many of them have given this evidence before the committee of 3 judges.
Ma'am, who do you blame? There has been cases like Tejwan or ये वाला case में, who do you actually blame? Absence of law है या implementation की कमी?
Absence of law
or implementation.
I think it's a combination of both. I do think that we need laws to hold judges accountable for their conduct. We all know that no such laws exist in the country except impeachment. And certainly when it comes to implementation, but my question then, there would be, I would throw a question back. If the implementers themselves are indulging in sexual harassment, let's not forget Justice Ganguly is a retired judge of the Supreme Court of India. And therefore, I can only answer your question by saying it's a combination of both. And that's the reason I say in my letter that to initiate this process against him will send the signal that those responsible for implementing the law must live by the law. You can't have double standards. That I will give a Vishaka judgment which will apply to you, but that judgment will not apply to me, and I'm not obliged to not sexually harass. She is obliged not to harass anybody, I'm obliged not to harass anybody, but the person giving the judgment is not obliged to harass anybody. We cannot tolerate that situation.